And happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Pressing Matters. I'm so happy you guys enjoyed the first episode and got some great feedback from it. You guys know I love soccer. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to add this to the Plug Talk Sports Network, just a show about soccer. We are going to be having guests. So you won't just only be seeing my beautiful face every single Thursday for a Pressing Matters episode. So we will have guests. We most likely will have a very special guest next Thursday. But here we are, episode 2. We got 4 items on the agenda for today. Excuse my voice. Had a game last night. Actually, men's soccer, Barrie and Palm Beach Atlantic. So just trying to get through it. It's been a busy week. Was in Orlando. Came home yesterday at 7 a.m. from Orlando to Miami. Had a game last night. And today I have a couple of meetings. We're knocking out the Pressing Matters podcast episode out of the way. And then tomorrow I have a speech at my high school to our junior class. And then have another podcast I was invited onto after that. Saturday I got another game for Barrie. Women's soccer this time around. So it's been quite a busy week, but it was also a very busy week in terms of soccer, in terms of football. There was Champions League. There was an Inter-Miami game. There was the U.S. Open Cup final. There was a lot to talk about. There were some headlines with the South African national team that we are going to get into. But first, item of business here on Pressing Matters is going to be Real Madrid against Atletico de Madrid, the Madrid derby last weekend. It was bad. It was very bad. I feel that the only 2 players that showed up to play in the Metropolitano, the home of Atletico de Madrid, was Kylian Mbappe and Albert Goulet, because everyone else, was shit. I will say there was a decision by the referee that I will get into that I didn't necessarily agree with at all, quite frankly. And I think that decision that he made impacted the momentum of the match, of where it was at. So let's take a look at the lineups. Let's take a look at first Real Madrid, how they lined up. So obviously in goal, they had Thibaut Courtois. Then in the back line, they had Dani Carvajal. They had Eder Militao, Dean Housen, and then Alvaro Carreras, which, let's talk about Alvaro Carreras for a second. I think every game so far that he has played for Madrid, he's been fantastic. He's been really good. But I think now being a Real Madrid player and now finally having a big match, and this obviously not as big as the Clásico. This was the Derby Madrileño. I think he felt the pressure of what it means to put on that white shirt with that Real Madrid badge on it in a match of this stature. Wow. He did not do well at all. And Xabi Alonso did not sub him out in the full 90 minutes, let him go full 90. I would have subbed him out. The pressure looked like it was way too much for him. But hey, what's the way of getting used to this pressure of putting on that white shirt is having experience. So now he knows. And this was just against Atleti. So hopefully now in October, the rest of this month now, as we head towards the Clásico in a couple weeks against Barcelona, he can now know what it's like to be in a pressured match. Yes, he's played Champions League already with Madrid, but he played against Marseille, and then a road game against Almaty, which we'll talk a little bit about later in this segment. But not really big matches that he had to be nervous about compared to the one against Atleti. So that's that problem. He did that. Fede Valverde. Fede Valverde is another one we need to talk about. I love Fede Valverde. It's obvious that he is trying to fill the role of Toni Kroos, who was for him his inspiration and his idol, someone that he looked up to, and he has mentioned it on the record so many times. But it's obvious that Fede, throughout the beginning of this season, has been in a slump. And he is not playing well. It is very obvious. Now, he came out with a statement that I will read to you because people are really getting on his nerve about his performance, and people are saying that he's not trying and he's not trying hard enough. So this is what Fede Valverde had to say on X after the game against Atleti. And obviously I'll read it to you in English so you guys fully understand. Fede Valverde says, end quote, "I have read several articles damaging my reputation. I know I've had bad games. I'm aware of it. I'm not hiding, and I face the criticism head on. I'm truly sad. People can say many things about me, but under no circumstances can they say that I refuse to play. I have given everything and more for this club. I've played while fractured, injured, and I've never complained or asked for a break. I have a good relationship with the coach, which makes me feel confident enough to tell him which position I prefer on the field. But I always made it clear that I'm available to perform anywhere, on any trip, and in every game. I've left my heart and soul in this club, and I will continue to do so, even if sometimes it's not enough or I'm not playing as I'd like. I swear on my pride that I will never give up, and I will fight until the end, playing wherever I am needed." And that was the statement from Fede Valverde. Listen, I think they got to give this guy a break. Fede Valverde is one of these players that barely misses any time on the pitch. This guy plays almost every single game. And I think the problem with Madrid fans is when things get ugly, and this was just one game, when things get ugly, they're quick to forget everything that a player has done for them in their club. I'm not saying you should excuse a bad performance. Obviously, he's in a slump. It happens. But let's not execute the guy who's done so much for this club just because he is in a bad run of form. We should not be telling him he's not trying for this shirt or for this club, or that, Xabi should bench him, or Xabi should transfer him to another club. It's absurd. And I think Madrid fans, and look, I am a diehard Madrid fan, but we can be very delusional at moments on calling for things that are unnecessary. And I think that this is one of them. So continue with the lineup for Madrid. They had Tchouaméni alongside Valverde. They had Arda Güler, Bellingham in the middle, Vinicius Jr., and then up top, Kylian Mbappe. I want to get to Bellingham. Bellingham is a player who just came back from shoulder surgery. He is recovering. I will agree with the criticism on this one to Xabi Alonso that I don't believe that Jude was ready for this game, was ready for the intensity of this match. You looked at him out there, he did not look like the usual Jude Bellingham that we are used to seeing. He looked sluggish. He looked tired. He looked like a player that was really trying hard to be the player that he usually is, but just didn't have enough in the tank. And you need to build Jude back into the lineup. Obviously, the first two games, he's come off the bench. But this one's full straight into starting lineup. And I don't think Jude should have been a starter. For the intensity that it is, the Derby Madrileño, it's very physical. Very demanding. And I don't think he had enough. And I think that was evident. Vinicius Jr. Vinicius Jr., obviously, since the Club World Cup, since the end of last year, since the beginning of this year, has faced so much criticism of what is wrong with Vinny. He looks like he is a shell of himself, not playing like he usually does. But, folks, I think the thing is here that Mbappe is now on this team. this is no longer Vinny's team. This is Kylian's team. What should have been a Ballon d'Or season for Vinicius Jr. that he was so evidently robbed by FIFA, which that's a whole other topic. We know that this is a popularity award show and FIFA gives it to their golden boys. Since that Ballon d'Or, yes, it could have something with it that has demotivated Vinny, has frustrated Vinny, and obviously all his cases of racism in Spain. But he has transformed his play to help Kylian. He's no longer the man that's going to be fed the ball and expected to go have a 50-goal season. No longer his role. You've got Mbappe. And I can prove that, and I can back that up with facts. Mbappe has scored in every single game that he has played so far this season, and that's absolutely insane. He's on an absolute tear right now in an amazing run of form. And that just goes to prove it to you. But people overlook Vinny has partnered well with Kylian. Just assisted him an amazing goal against Almaty in the Champions League. But people don't see that. It was the same with Karim Benzema. Benzema was overshadowed by Cristiano Ronaldo. And people criticized Benzema's performance. They were like, oh, he's not scoring enough. That's because people, yes, scoring is important, but they don't see the movements off the ball. They don't see the distribution to feed their goal scorer. People don't look at that. The casual soccer, just the random soccer fans, not going to look at that. Obviously, people like myself who are avid watchers, who are analysts, who work in the sports field, who know the sport well, we will look at that. So yes, would I love to see Vinny scoring so much more? Yes, because I love Vinny, and I love when Vinny's happy, and I love when Vinny is in the mood to score goals. But I understand that his role is much different now on this Madrid team with having Mbappe on the team. Now that opens a whole can of worms of, oh, well, that's why we should have never brought Mbappe. Well, if you're offered Mbappe, are you going to say no? Absolutely not. One of the world's best players right now. You take him. So I don't think that people are giving Vinny a fair shake either, even though I am critical of some performances that he's had, but he has also proven me wrong this season. So we'll look at some of the subs here that Riyad inserted. So Dean Housen didn't have a good defensive game either, which he usually so far this season has had solid performances. He was replaced by Gonzalo Garcia, the standout that we saw in the FIFA Club World Cup. Militao was replaced by Raúl Asensio. Carvajal replaced by Eduardo Camavinga. Bellingham was replaced by Rodrigo. And Arda Güler was replaced by Franco Mastantuono. Here's the thing. We should have kept Güler on the field. And we should have started Mastantuono. I think that is where Xavi messed up. Mastantuono has had a good run of form, especially before this Atleti game. When they played Levante, Mastantuono scored. So, and especially Arda Güler was the one that was creating everything for your team offensively, was a distributor, and was dangerous getting to the final third. To pull him off, I'm not sure that was a great idea. So we look at Atleti. They get Julian Alvarez up top along Sorloth. You got Gonzalez, Koke, Barrios, Juliano Simeone, Henko, Langley, Lenormand, Llorente, and Oblak. Javi Galan replaces Henko. Antoine Griezmann comes on for Nicolas Gonzalez. Alex Baena came in for Simeone. Molina came in for Julian Alvarez. And Conor Gallagher came on for Sorloth. let's take a look at how this game started. Lots of pressure from Atleti. Robin Lenormand opened the scoring in the 14th minute. And let me just tell you, any ball that was played in the air, Real looked like they had no chance of stopping it. And that's exactly what happened in this match. Set pieces, corners, crosses into the box. That is something that Xabi needs to work on because this team looked so vulnerable defensively with the ball in the air. And that's how Lenormand scored at the beginning of this game with a header. Nothing Courtois could do about it. Then we go to the 25th minute. From a very difficult angle, Kylian Mbappé scores, making it 1-1, and right there the momentum changed. And you felt it right away. Real has silenced the Metropolitano, and this was Real's game to take home and dominate victory. 36th minute, Arda Güler makes it 2-1. Real has the lead. 45th minute, +3. Sorloth, another ball in the air, makes it 2-2, and you're immediately frustrated we just gave up another ball through the air. What's going on with the defense? What's going on with Dean Housen? What's going on with Alvaro Carreras? Then we get to the 51st minute in the second half. Julian Alvarez strikes a free kick that I don't know what Courtois was doing. Courtois let him a lot of space, and he went right to where the space was given and scored. 3-2 Atleti. Just like that. The momentum has completely gone from Real. This is where it officially makes things worse, and this game is completely lost. A penalty was given in the 63rd minute to Atleti. Arda Güler, there's a ball in the air. He's in the box, of course. Raises his boot high. Clears it. I can't express it enough to you guys. You guys can go take a look at it. 2 seconds later, after Arda clears that, an Atleti player runs right into the boot of Arda Güler. What in the world are you supposed to do in that moment? Are you supposed to say, oh, well, there's the ball. I'm just going to let that fly right through and let you head it? Not going to have an attempt to do anything with it because I can't get my head to do it. I have to lift my leg. Now, you told me it was a 50-50 bang-bang play. I understand why that penalty would have been called. But it wasn't even close. And this changed the whole momentum for sure. Put the nail in the coffin. They scored 4-2. Add salt to the wound. Antoine Griezmann comes on and scores a 90-minute +3 stoppage time. Makes it 5-2. And they hand Real Madrid the first loss of the season. Barcelona, of course, won. They took the lead of La Liga. They're only up by 1 point, so not too much to worry about. Of course, Madrid goes on in the Champions League to Kazakhstan to play Kairat Almaty, which they absolutely destroyed them 5-0 with a hat trick from Mbappé. So we'll see. As there's big games in this month of October for Madrid, they have Villarreal, Getafe. Then they've got Juventus in the Champions League, and then El Clasico against Barcelona. So they responded well. Obviously, Almaty is not anything compared to Real, but they responded well, did Xabi Alonso's men, and we'll see the month of October how they deal with these big matches. So we're going to switch. Here's second item of business today. Inter Miami against Chicago Fire. Let's look at how Inter Miami has been shaping up. This is the last weekday game that they have for the season. They come off of a kind of a disappointing 1-1 draw against Toronto FC, who's not doing good this season. Which, by the way, both games against Toronto this season, Miami's come away with a draw. This brings in the Chicago Fire, who is fighting for a playoff spot. So you can imagine they're at near bottom of the table. 11th minute, Chicago Fire gets on the board. It's 1-0. Jonathan Dean then gets on the board in the 31st, making it 2-0 for Chicago. Chase Stadium is silent. 39th minute, Tomas Aviles puts Miami on the board with a kind of lucky bouncing ball in the box and somehow found its way in. 2-1. We go to halftime. Kwame in the 43rd makes it 3-1. And you think to yourself, there's no way Miami's coming back from this. Well, I told my dad, in the MLS, only in the MLS can you see a team up 4-0 and not have a safe lead, because that doesn't happen in Europe. 57th, Luis Suarez finally scores. Guess put some WD-40 on those joints and scored a goal. Only takes him 100 chances nowadays to put a ball in the back of the net. 74th minute. Scores again. It's 3-3. Folks, can't believe it. You can't make it up. It's a tie game. And then from there, it goes downhill for Inter Miami. 80th minute, Reynolds scores. It's 4-3 Chicago. Brian Gutierrez, 83rd, absolute missile. That needs to be MLS goal of the week. An absolute missile of a goal. Ustari was just watching it go by. 5-3. And that is your final result. Chicago clinches a spot in the playoffs. They beat Inter Miami with Messi and friends all on the field. Messi storms off the field upset after this loss. They fall to 4th. With now the final month of the season approaching, October. Javier Mascherano post-game puts the blame of the loss on himself for not having a good game plan. Messi was held scoreless in this game. Supporter Shield, it's basically gone. Philadelphia Union has one hand on the trophy already. You can forget about that. Not that, in my opinion, Supporter Shield counts for anything. It just means you scored the most points, earned the most points in the league. All right, big whoop-de-doo. You know, you can't get it done in the playoffs, win MLS Cup, which is the most important. Supporter Shield doesn't mean anything. Hence, it's called Supporter Shield for a reason. It's just for the supporters to celebrate. Look, we got a trophy. This was one of the games that Miami had in hand, but because of the League's Cup, had to reschedule. And like I said, Miami down to 4th in the table. In the final 3 games of the season, New England Revolution this Saturday at Chase Stadium. Then they welcome Atlanta United. And then to close off the season on the road against Nashville, who just beat Austin FC for the U.S. Open Cup. This team is another case. I mean, I've been saying it, said it last week. The coach is just not good. Doesn't know what he's doing. It was a terrible hire. Has no experience. He's only here because he's friends with Messi. Played with Messi. So is everyone else. They keep ignoring the fact that the defense has been absolute trash for years now. For years. And what's Inter Miami's response to it? Let's just go to Argentina and continue to get attackers. Sure, we'll cancel out defense and goalkeeping by more attackers. Folks, this team only wins when Messi has magic. When he doesn't score, this team loses. And if they don't have him, it's even worse. The defense is not good. Busquets has decided to retire at the end of this year. Most likely going to give his DP spot to Rodrigo de Paul, which has been a huge letdown. He has not done anything at all. Yeah, he had one tap-in goal. That's about it. Folks, listen to this. If you're 31 years old, you are a world champion with your national team. You're an Atletico de Madrid. And you decide you want to come to MLS because you want to play with Messi at 31 years old, the prime of your career. And Atleti just says, okay, well, yeah, if you want to do that, we're okay with letting you go. It is a loan, purchase to buy, which I'm sure Inter Miami is going to trigger the purchase to buy. And Atleti will just be more than happy to give him a bad price to please Inter Miami, a cheap price, so they can get him off their books. Think about it, folks. You're telling me that a 31-year-old just won the World Cup, who's in the prime of his career, you're telling me that a top club in Europe is going to be like, yeah, you can just have him. We'll let him go. There's something wrong there. And what is that wrong? It's that he's just not that good. Certainly hasn't proved it Inter Miami in the MLS. So imagine being in La Liga with Atletico de Madrid. Didn't look like Atleti's missing him. Look what they did to Real this past weekend. So he has not been a good signing. What is my prediction, you may ask? I don't know who they'll face in the playoffs. Obviously, they got eliminated first round to Atlanta last year. I don't think that this Inter Miami team is going to win the MLS Cup. And if they prove me wrong, there you guys have it. You have it to see that I said Inter Miami won't win MLS Cup. And you guys can laugh at me. I'm okay with that. Prove me wrong. Please do. It brings another championship to the city. What would I be upset about? Prove me wrong. I don't think they'll do it. You're not going to sub out scoring as many goals as possible with a very bad defense and a very bad coach. Just won't happen. So we'll see how this season plays out now with New England, Atlanta, and Nashville, how it ends. And we'll see how they do in the playoffs. I'm sure we'll have talks about them as we go on in the upcoming weeks. But when it happens, don't say I didn't tell you so. Again, when Messi's not on, this team struggles. And they're not setting themselves up for a good future. Just building around Messi because he's going to resign. And when he does, this is probably the end of his career. And when he leaves, and all you've done is built around Messi and bring in his friends, and you're not building a club and building talent, it's going to be a bad ride. So I hope that they wake up. First of all, that they hire a sporting director that knows what he's doing, not just in position because he's friends with Messi. Just like LeBron James in the NBA. Just because you're one of the greats doesn't mean you're a good GM. And so far, Messi playing GM has not been good. I'll leave it at that. Next item of business was a very good Champions League match that everybody was waiting for. PSG, the reigning European champions, and FC Barcelona. Now, PSG had loads of people out in this game. So you can imagine that Barcelona was going to be favorites. Obviously, Luis Enrique faces his former team. Let's take a look at the lineups. For PSG, this is how they lined up. Lucas Chevalier was in goal. Sabarni in the back. Pacho, Nuno Mendes, Hakimi Ashraf, Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, Zaire Emery, Mbaye, Mayulu, and Barcola. That is how PSG lined up. For Barcelona, Szczesny, Martin, Kubarsi, Garcia, Koundé in the back. De Jong and Pedri, Marcus Rashford, Dani Olmo, Lamine Yamal, and Ferran Torres. That's how Barca lined up. How did they sub? Garcia came off. Andres Christensen came in. Martin came off. Alejandro Balde came in. Dani Olmo came off. Marc Casado came in. Pedri came off for Marc Bernal. And Rashford made way for Robert Lewandowski. The first goal of this game went to Ferran Torres. And he put Barca up 1-0. Okay. They struck first. But then Seni Mayulu, 38th minute, ties this game, 1-1. And for a long time, we were looking at this one and we were saying, wow, well, I guess this should be a win for PSG. They're going to finish this match tied 1-1 with Barcelona, which if you're Barcelona, you got everybody and you're struggling against a very shorthanded PSG. Granted, they're still the European champions. But Goncalo Ramos, in the 90th minute, wins it for PSG. And Barca is handed their first loss. And when we look at the table of the UEFA Champions League, very early on, Bayern Munich, there's about 6 teams who all have 6 points. And that would be Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, PSG, Inter Milan, Arsenal. I don't even know who this team is. FK Qarabag. Borussia Dortmund is the first team in 7th that has 4 points. And Barcelona currently in 16th, only with 3. They beat Newcastle 2-1. And then against PSG, of course, the loss. They'll have Olympiacos next. Club Brugge, Chelsea, Eintracht Frankfurt. This was a big one for Barcelona. This was another one of those matches like we talked about Real Madrid Atleti. This was the big match for Barca, their first big match against the European champions who were, again, shorthanded, and they lost. Hansi Flick's a great coach. I have to give it to him. He does the best with what he has. I won't say, obviously, this Barcelona team compared to Barcelona teams of the past, it's not the best, but Hansi Flick makes it work. He's got some striking options in there. But Barcelona, again, first real test, is going to fall. I feel like this is a team, as we saw last year, that is built for domestic success. And when I say domestic success, I talk about La Liga, Spanish Super Cup, Copa del Rey. You can argue, oh, well, they made it all the way to the semifinals of the Champions League. They blew it to Inter Milan. And look what happened to Inter Milan in the Champions League final. If that was Barcelona, if Inter Milan did that to Barcelona, imagine if it would have been Barcelona in that final against PSG. It could have been bad. And now I know many of you say, oh, you're just saying all this and you're being critical because you're a Real Madrid fan. No, I'm a straight shooter. I analyze and I say what I think without there being any bias. I think Barcelona is a great team. I think they're very well coached. I actually think that Hansi Flick was coaching Barcelona better than Carlo Ancelotti was coaching Real Madrid in this last year. But Lamine Yamal, again, being a youngster, still has a lot to learn. Was not at his best yesterday. And everyone's making fun of that free kick that he had that I think even the International Space Station caught that on their radar. He's got a lot to learn still in big-time matches. Obviously, he's played in big-time matches with the national team. But still, young kid, lots to learn. And as I said, the first real test for Barcelona came, it went, and it was a loss. We are going to go into our final, before we go to Team of the Week, our final subject of the evening. And it has to do with South Africa. Obviously, the World Cup has expanded. So, more teams are eligible to make it to the tournament. South Africa was stripped of a men's World Cup qualifying victory over an ineligible player. FIFA's disciplinary ruling overturned a South Africa win against Lesotho in March. And I'll read this to you. South Africa was stripped of a win in the 2026 World Cup qualifying by FIFA this past Monday and lost the top spot in its group for fielding an ineligible player. FIFA's disciplinary ruling overturned a South Africa win against Lesotho, left Benin top with 2 rounds to go, and gave Nigeria fresh hope of advancing to the finals tournament. The group winner on October 14th will advance direct to the World Cup, being co-hosted obviously by the US, Canada, and Mexico, which South Africa has not played at the World Cup since being their host in 2010. This player, Teboho Mokoena, should have served a 1-game ban for accumulation of yellow cards. But he played. And folks, all this is just an embarrassing administrative error. And I'm sorry, if this decision, if this huge error costs you going to the World Cup next year in 2026, I can see people in Johannesburg and Cape Town setting cars on fire. You haven't been to the big tournament since 2010. FIFA expands it now for 26. This is a perfect opportunity to make it back. You imagine as a citizen of that country thinking, wow, we didn't make it to the World Cup because we played an ineligible player. I'd lose my mind. I'd absolutely lose my mind. And if they eventually don't make it, whoever made that error and made that decision should be fired. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm proud of saying people should be fired because that's messed up. But if you make a huge decision like that, an error that costs your country to go into the World Cup, a country which right now politically is in turmoil, and something like the World Cup can bring the country together, and you're robbed from that, from this error, should be fired. Absolutely 100%. Let me know what you guys think on that. But you know what time it is? It's time for Team of the Week. Your Team of the Week is PSG. Last week, we had Marseille. So we're getting into another French team this week. PSG had that loss against Marseille. They're so injury plagued right now that nobody thought at all that they were going to come into this Champions League game against Barcelona and actually do anything. Well, they did. They beat Barcelona 2-1 to get the 3 points. And they're in the top 5 of the table early on through 2 matches in the Champions League. It is impressive with the players that they did it with and did it without. It is impressive that they were able to beat Barcelona. And for that matter, that is exactly why I'm giving them the team of the week. Well, folks, that has come to an end of our time together tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed Pressing Matters episode number 2. Of course, I'm always open for suggestions, topics that you guys want to hear about in the world of football, world of soccer. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys enjoy your upcoming weekend. And we'll see you guys next week for a brand new episode number 3 of Pressing Matters right here on the Plug Talk Sports Network. For Daniel Torres, so long.